Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Take Back My Brain. I am your host, Laurie Hammer, and you are on the podcast where we seek truth for our health, for our minds, and for our well-being so that we can live the life that God created us to live. So I am super excited today and very honored to have Dr. Jack Wolfson with us today. And if you have not read his book, The Paleo Cardiologist, which is #1 Amazon bestseller, you really need to read that book because it is amazing. He's a board certified cardiologist, best-selling author, husband, father, fellow homeschooler, and I cannot wait to hear the story and have this conversation. So, Dr. Jack, thank you for being on the Take Back My Brain podcast.
Laurie, it's an absolute pleasure. I mean, let me first say that I love the nutritional therapy practitioners. I love your educational background. I love the community of what that is and everything really the association stands for. So I certainly applaud you and your education. And a lot of your guests, or excuse me, a lot of your listeners may be wondering, like, what does a cardiologist know about brain health? And I'll just tell you my, story real quick is that I was basically born into the cardiology world. My father was a cardiologist. So I'd like to say that in utero, I'm listening to him talk about cardiology, and as a child and as I grew up, it's all I wanted to do is become a cardiologist, and it's exactly what I would do. And as I was achieving all this career success early on in my late 20s, early 30s, my father unfortunately was sick and dying of a Parkinson's-like illness called progressive supranuclear palsy. And the Mayo Clinic we take him to, they give him the label of PSP. And I asked, why does he have this? And they said, we've got no idea why. And there's no treatment, and he'll be dead within 3 years. And then serendipitously and simultaneously, I met this young doctor of chiropractic, and she tells me exactly why my father is sick and dying of this Parkinson's-like illness, PSP. And what she had to say made perfect sense. I would change my personal life. I would change my career because she said, this is going to become you. You will have PSP or similar, or something will beget you if you don't find the cause. And she said, you need to become a doctor of cause. And that's, what I did. I became a doctor of cause. We got married, 4 children later. Here we are.
I love it. That's such a great story. So, what was the cause?
So, and I would like to say that again, God, put me in this position for a reason. My father's death created the man that I am today to be able to share this information and hopefully, knowledge that people can start to change. But I guess ultimately it comes down to giving the body what it needs and taking away what it doesn't. So my father, living in Chicago-based cardiologist, lack of sun, poor sleep, all the environmental toxins and pollutants of A, living in Chicago, B, working inside of a hospital system. He did take a known neurotoxin called Lipitor, a statin drug. I think that played a factor. He certainly drank too much alcohol. There's no sob story to the alcohol equation, part of the equation, but the sob story is that my father's dead. Like, that's the sob story of it. He was a great drinker. He was the life of the party, joke teller, storyteller, Chicago, sporting events, all these things that we did. And unfortunately, he's no longer around. He died at 63 and back in 2007. And like I said, there's a reason for everything. His demise was what I am today. But ultimately, it comes down to giving the body what it needs and taking away what it doesn't.
I love that. I love that. So true. I lost my mom over a year ago to dementia, and here I am, the nutritionist that works with the brain, and learned a lot during that process, and a lot of similar things to what you're talking about with your dad. And people have to be ready and willing, to make those changes in order to reverse the things that are going on in their bodies. So, was that your aha moment when you went from mainstream cardiology, or what happened after that?
Yeah, that aha moment was just tremendous, right? I mean, I was with the biggest group in the state of Arizona. I was with 25 other cardiologists and cardiovascular surgeons. Financially, we were very successful. My career was very secure. But I started to change after that epiphany, that aha moment. And again, it was very quick. That just everything clicked. It all made sense. Like, wow, there's so much sickness all around me, and the pharmaceuticals aren't working, and nobody's happy, nobody feels good. And then I hear about this better way of, what we now call the 100-year heart method: eat well, live well, think well, test, don't guess, evidence-based supplements, biohacking strategies. And I started to change in my personal life, started to change in my career life. But when you're in the big group doesn't like people thinking outside the box, bad for business. So I started getting in trouble, with the heads of the group and with other referring doctors, like, why is Wolfson stopping statin drugs? And why is he talking
Right.
about this organic paleo diet, all that kind of stuff? And I would eventually leave that group in 2012 and start Natural Heart Doctor. And it's been just an absolute blessing ever since.
I love it. So let's start with foundational stuff, because you being the paleo cardiologist does fly in the face of, mainstream medical, here, eat this, not that kind of thing. So how did you come to that? And, what would you say to somebody who has heart issues? Like, what diet is going to be best for you?
Well, let me say this. First and foremost, no matter what diet you follow, vegan, vegetarian, paleo, keto, carnivore, go organic. Get the chemicals out of your food. That's number 1, 2, and 3. Next in line would be eating a lot of seafood. Our ancestors enjoyed a lot of seafood. People with the highest levels of omega-3 as measured in the blood have the lowest risk of everything, including brain-based diseases, certainly cardiovascular and brain-based diseases. So I love eating a lot of wild seafood, things like salmon, sardines, anchovies, clams, oysters, shrimp, lobster, crab. Scallops are another one of nature's superfoods. Salmon roe, wild salmon roe, the fish
Love
eggs.
that. Mm,
I mean, think about, the salmon roe. Everything that a salmon needs to come to life is inside of that little tiny roe, just like a chicken egg. Everything that a chicken needs to come to life is inside of a chicken egg. So all that stuff is miracle food. Also a big fan of grass-fed organs. Specifically, we love bison. So bison liver, bison heart. If we're looking about building better brains, those omega-3s are critical from the seafood. All the nutrients that are found in the organs are also pure brain food. Our ancestors, our Paleolithic hunter-gatherer ancestors, they ate brain. They
big.
loved brain. So it's not so easy to come by. There's definitely a lot of social stigmata related to it. We've been working on trying to get bison brain type encapsulated products,
Nice.
but that's all just nature's superfood. And then, David Perlmutter, who I don't always agree with, David Perlmutter wrote the book Grain Brain, and the money is in the title. Eating grain is not good for your brain. I
Right.
think it's on the list. I don't think we need grain. If I'm struggling with brain related issues, I'm not eating grain, certainly not wheat, barley, and rye, and certainly not genetically modified grains.
Right. Right. Absolutely. Tell us how the genetically modified component plays into all this with your brain, your heart health, and everything.
Well, I think that, the genetically modified component, certainly there is some evidence that it can impact our own genetics, our own DNA, our RNA, the translation from DNA to RNA into different proteins. I think there can definitely be some impact from that in a whole variety of ways. But the one thing that certainly is most sinister about it is that genetically modified grains are modified to withstand the pesticide exposure. So when you're spraying heavy pesticides, things like DDT, atrazine, and now most commonly glyphosate, these are all neurotoxins. They damage the brain, damage the heart, damage the entire body. One of the ways they do so, and maybe the first mechanism, is they damage the gut microbiome. So all the healthy gut bugs that are there to help to just maintain the integrity of your intestines and therefore the gut and the gut barrier, leading to intestinal hyperpermeability, what a lot of people know of as leaky gut.
Yep.
Now things get in through this leaky gut and they create immune dysfunction or immune activation and dysfunction, inflammation, oxidative stress, and then all inflammation, oxidative stress is linked to Parkinson's, dementia, heart attacks, strokes. The medical community just doesn't get that, as you know, Laurie. They have no clue about any of it. And they're working on the Alzheimer's drugs and working on the dementia drugs and working on the Parkinson's drugs, when all they have to do is work for the cause. And that's how you get the cure.
Yeah, no, I totally agree. I have a lot of women that are watching this right now. And that's mainly my practice too, is of women. So I would love for you to address cholesterol with, perimenopause, menopausal health, because so many women coming to me in that age group, right? Their cholesterol might be 230, 245, 260, and all of a sudden they're put on a cholesterol med. And then they come to me and they're like, okay, my thyroid just tanked. I've got anxiety and depression now. Now my doc just put me on a med. I feel like I'm losing my freaking mind. And I just feel I hurt from head to toe. So what do you say to that woman? Because there's so many components there. And first of all, what I say to them is, okay, I can't take you off your cholesterol med, but here's what it's doing to you. So I would love for you to expand that for me.
Yeah, I would love to. And let me just start with this too, is that I would sooner send someone to you, Laurie, for brain health advice than any neurologist I've ever worked with. The neurologists are absolutely worthless. It's a total sham profession. It has no value whatsoever. So again, if the neurologist doesn't want to work with you, find a new neurologist or get rid of the neurologist, fire your neurologist. When I tell people about statin drugs, I say you stop them cold turkey. Sure, ask your doctor, all this kind of legalese, type stuff. So yeah, Jack Wolfson here. I'm not telling you to stop your drugs. I'm just saying, if you were my patient, I would have you stop the drugs immediately. And in doing so, you'll recover your brain health. Now, one thing that's very important inside of the substantia nigra in the midbrain. So this is the area that does a lot of really communications between higher brain functions and more primitive brain functions in the middle brain, amygdala, type things in that area. And the substantia nigra has something in there called dolicol, Dolichol, and it's a cholesterol-like molecule that is uniquely found inside of the substantia nigra. Wouldn't you know that statin drugs inhibit the production of dolicol? So, and so does alcohol, by the way. Alcohol damages that particular area and the formation of dolicol. So without getting too sciencey, again, statin drugs are neurotoxins. They have very little, if any, benefit to the heart per their data. I don't think they have any benefit. And I believe it's one of the things that got my father. So that being said, when it comes to, the statin drugs and the deficiencies that they cause, there really is no reason to be on a statin drug. To answer your question, cholesterol is not the enemy. Cholesterol should be in your brain and all of your hormones and all over your body. We know from the Mr. Fit trial from the 1970s, the sweet spot for total cholesterol is between 160 and 260. So you want to be inside of that sweet spot ideally. But if you're asking me, I would rather my cholesterol be a little bit, quote unquote, too high than too low. Too low is definitely a problem.
Why is it a problem?
Well, because your body needs cholesterol. Your body needs cholesterol for example, the brain of the cell is not the nucleus. The nucleus is just the architectural drawings of the house. But the house, really, the outside of the house, that is the real shelter, the real protective thing that keeps you safe, is the cell membrane. That's the brain of the cell. And the cell membrane, this fence, is loaded with cholesterol. The hormones that our body make comes from cholesterol. Vitamin D, people with the highest levels of vitamin D, lowest risk of everything. Where does vitamin D come from? When the sun hits the precursor when the sun hits cholesterol, if you will, it turns it into vitamin D. So we want to get vitamin D from the sun. The sun is a big part of our entire brain health story and total body health story. Now, of course, cholesterol is very important also for digestion. So the liver makes cholesterol and puts it in the gallbladder, digest our food. So many different things that cholesterol does. Cholesterol was vilified by the pharmaceutical companies in order to sell us their pharmaceutical poisons. Embrace and love cholesterol and cholesterol-rich foods from healthy sources.
Right. So when my father-in-law was going through some cancer stuff, he ended up with a blood clot. And so, their protocol, because he had to see a cardiologist because he had a blood clot, they put him on a statin and this and that. And his cholesterol wasn't high to start with. It was like 170. I went to his doctor's appointment with him and his cholesterol was down to 90. And I looked at the doctor, I said, is that not alarming to you? Like it's 90. He's like, no, the lower, the better. I said, he's going to have a stroke. He's going to, there's going to be an aneurysm. There's going to be something that's going to be really wrong. He's like, oh, no, it's not. So they wouldn't take him off of it. And of course, the age of my in-laws are like, no, we're staying on whatever their doctor says. A few months later, he had an aneurysm and he died.
Yeah. Well, I mean, like you said, I mean, cholesterol is part of the strengthening of the vessels.
Right.
And, so for example, right. So, if we're talking about cellular health, you want good cellular health. It starts with, certainly cholesterol is one of those major factors. In that cell membrane, one of the biggest things in there are those omega-3 fatty acids that you get from eating seafood. So, embracing the seafood, avoiding statin drugs, I think is always a good strategy. But, listen, when you talk about your confrontations with the medical doctors, that's just the way that we're trained. From day one, we are hammered with the pharmaceutical message. It was created that way in the early 1900s. And it's that way right now. Pharmaceutical companies control all medical education. They control the hospitals, the insurance companies, all the governing bodies, American Heart Association, American College of Cardiology, all the medical journals. Everything is owned by the pharmaceutical companies. So it's not a surprise when you ask your medical doctor, oh, well, is this drug, doing me harm? They're always going to default to only thing they know is that the pharmaceutical therapy. We get zero training in nutrition, lifestyle, and emotional wellness.
Right. No, and that's the frustrating part. I know people come to me all the time, like, why didn't my doctor say this? And it's not, I said, well, it's not because your doctor doesn't know what he's doing. He knows what he's doing in the sphere that he knows what he's doing. But he hasn't been trained in that. They haven't been trained in that. So it's frustrating to the patients for sure, because you want to trust your doctor.
You want to, and it's just, yeah, it's unfortunate. And it's not because these people are unintelligent, they're very intelligent, but it's like, Laurie, I don't know about you, but I don't speak Hindu, for example,
Right.
or, Gujarati, whatever the language they're going to be using in India, of which there's a million different dialects. But if I go to India and someone starts speaking to me in my non-native language, I won't even know what they're talking about. I'm not an idiot. I just never learned their language. Just like if they don't
Right.
understand me, it's not that they're unintelligent. The medical doctors, they're only trained in one language, and that is the pharmaceutical and surgical language. That's it. That's all they understand.
Right. Yeah, for sure. So how does one come out of that? Because, I feel like there's an awakening happening. Like certainly you had yours a while ago, but even with the last few years with, the pandemic and everything that we had, there's just been like an awakening among the medical system. What do you think? How do you think that's happened?
Well, I believe it's born out of two things. One is the frustration of the public
Mhm.
and constantly going back to their physician. And some people wake up to this, and I think there is more conversation about it these days. Maybe even like Dr. Oz, brought this a little bit to the forefront, and others, Mark Hyman, maybe some high profile people that are well known that are talking about all
Right.
these alternative remedies. I think that's part of it. But I think a lot of the people like myself, it's born of personal health struggles that
Yep.
medical community cannot solve, or it's from a family member that we've been associated with who is just not getting better. And then you have this epiphany moment where you wake up, and either you meet somebody or you come across, reading. That's why I love, the internet, of course, in that
Right.
area. And someone could say to you, Laurie, oh, well, what do you look, Laurie, look at you. I mean, you got this degree from the NTA and you're an NTP, and you're like this mommy blogger, like Dr. Google. And like, yeah, like where do the mommy bloggers get their stuff from? They get it from
Right.
mainstream literature that the medical doctors are not reading.
Right.
They're not reading them. So, in any case, yeah, I think, I mean, listen, with God's help, we're going to win the war on this one, and it better happen soon because society is getting sicker and sicker.
Oh, sicker and sicker all the time. One of the biggest things I see is sleep issues. And you just wrote a really great article on sleep and how that affects cardiovascular health. And I would love for you to kind of dive into that, especially because how many moms do you know that are actually sleeping? And we don't sleep for years, and all of a sudden we get to sleep and then our hormones shift and then we're not sleeping again. And so, there's a whole bunch of issues going on there. So I'd love for you to address that.
Yeah, well, we always debate about the food story, what food should we eat, what, should we do this, should we do this, I
Yeah.
mean, on and on and on. But what about the other parts of the story, which is live well? So live well includes sleep and sunshine and physical activity and movement and avoiding environmental toxins and pollutants. And I do want to say this here real quick. If I'm thinking about one brain toxin, I'm thinking about mold
I would love to
mycotoxins
dive into that. Yes.
and bacteria from water damaged buildings. big factor in the
Yeah.
destruction. And by the way, the original statin drug, citrinin, is a mold mycotoxin.
Yes, it
And yeah,
is.
that's a whole thing there. Real quick on sleep. Listen, our ancestors came from the equator. They came from the Middle East. There was no electricity. They went to sleep after the sundown. They woke up before the sunrise. When you are awake at 9:30, 10 o'clock, 10:30, 11 o'clock, and so on, you're in the artificial light, you're in the poison, and it kills you. It kills your brain, kills your heart. Most recently, studies showed that people who describe themselves as night owls, people who go to sleep later than what they should, they have a much higher incidence of coronary artery calcification, something that's linked, of course, with death. So it's just common sense stuff, people. It's just common sense. Go to sleep earlier, avoid the tech at night, and you will just do so much better.
Right, right. And I think that people are like, well, what if my kid is out? What if, this is happening? I have to have my phone. I have to have this. I have to have that. And I'm thinking we survived for how many thousands of years without knowing those things? Is there a rare emergency and something that could happen? Of course there is. But, we don't sleep. We don't even have like lights on our nightstands in our bedroom. Like our phones are completely out. We don't have any, electricity other than, what naturally runs through the house. So it can be done.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, to your point, I mean, again, I understand the struggles of, yeah, my kid is out and about or whatever. Now, first of all, I mean, you would say that a child living under your roof
Should be
must
home
be
at
home
10
at a
o'clock.
reasonable time. Yeah,
Right.
I mean, again, like, we got to take control of it here. But listen, if you want your health to get better and you want your sleep to get better, these are the rules, and you can't break the rules. You can come up with all kind of excuses, but
Yeah.
that's going to be on you. So if you're going to sit there, well, I can't do any of this, so I'm going to keep swallowing Ambien and whatever else I'm doing. Well, good luck. You're not gonna be around for long.
No, you have to make the lifestyle changes. I always tell my clients, you make the choice first, because if your body decides, it's going to be hell and you're not going to like it. So you might as well make the choice first, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I would love to dive into mold. So let's talk about mold as a neurotoxin. And I'm really interested in this because we've had mold in our home on and off the last couple of years because of, water issues. And I've been affected by it. Actually, I've just been sick for like 6 weeks because of mold and viruses and things like that. So I'm all over this. So let's dive in.
Okay. Mold has been around since the dawn of human existence, before human existence, whether you believe in the biblical version or the evolutionary version or God created evolutionary version. Mold was here first. Mold is
What
a
came
fungus
first?
and it knows how to survive. So when you have water damage in your home from a leaky roof or a flood or from a sink, a shower, a toilet, a dishwasher, a laundry machine, that water damages the structures. Though typically it's going to be wood or some other kind of synthetic building
Yep.
material, and it will lead to mold and bacteria growth. The mold and bacteria, in an effort to propagate and survive, they release the Army, Navy, Air Force, and Marines, and those are known as things like mycotoxins, lipopolysaccharides, endotoxins, exotoxins in the case of bacteria. Those toxins get into our brain and into our bodies, and they cause us to be sick and die. I've got videos on this. It's in the medical literature. Don't ask your standard medical doctor because they won't have a clue what we're talking about here. But penicillin, everyone's heard of penicillin. It's an antibiotic. What
Right.
is it? It's a mold mycotoxin. The first statin drug was modeled on citrinin. It is a mold mycotoxin. One of the most famous immunosuppressants to suppress the immune system if you have, for example, an autoimmune condition like lupus or rheumatoid arthritis or similar, or if you receive an organ transplant in order to shut down your immune system so it doesn't attack the new organ, they put you on a pharmaceutical called Cellcept. Cellcept is mycophenolic acid. It is a mold mycotoxin. Cyclosporin, very similar, immunosuppressive. Black box warnings, cyclosporin, it's a mold mycotoxin. We can test you for it. Laurie can test you for it. We
Yeah.
can test your home for mold and bacteria damage. If you are sick or you want to avoid being sick, test your urine, test your home.
Yeah, absolutely. So, what are they going to find if they test their urine? They're just going to find mycotoxins, because that's what you're saying, right? You're not saying they're going to find, the mold spore itself, but it's always the mycotoxins that comes out, or will they have mold as
They will
well?
find them. They will find the mycotoxins in the urine, which means that they're breathing it in, they're swallowing it in, it's getting in through the skin, and they will find that in the urine. But when you do the Swiffer test of your home in what's called an ERMI test, ERMI, and then also looking for bacteria, you are actually testing for the mold spores and the bacterial spores. It's the absolute best test to do. It's called the ERMI, the number 8 Swiffer test. Is something that we recommend, and listen, that part's easy. It's very easy to diagnose someone with mold toxicity. The most difficult thing, of course, is what to do about
What to do next? Yeah, because
it.
it's very
That's the most
insidious.
difficult part.
Yeah.
It is, and it's difficult to deal with. It can be expensive. It leads to a lot of marital strife, because 4 out of 5
Yes.
times it's the woman who's affected, not the man. The man feels fine, right? He's got high blood pressure. He's got erectile dysfunction. He's got, all these other, things. He's got like some tremor, whatever, skin issues, but they never equate it to it being that. But the women, they get it. They feel like crap. Nobody knows why. And mold mycotoxicity, it's a major factor.
I would love for you to address this because I love the fact you just brought it up, the difference between men and women. I don't, what you just described, totally myself and my husband, right? Even down to the symptoms that he has and the, symptoms I have. What do you tell a woman who, like their husband just doesn't get it? Like you're a man, so speak to them.
I sympathize with you because I've seen it many, 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 many times. In fact, one of my presentations, I start off where it's a man and a woman, and they're in front of a physician. It's a picture that I found on the internet, and the woman's got her back, and you can see kind of her face a little bit, but the man's sitting there like this. He's got his arms crossed, and he's got like this scowl, smirk on his face. Like he just doesn't believe what's going on. And it's unfortunate because the women that are there suffering. And how do you convince a man? Again, I guess, show him my videos, show him, internet things. But, I mean, listen, it's difficult. It's expensive. It is time consuming. And yeah, I mean, again, there's a lot of divorces that happen. Now, divorces happen in the scenario for twofold. Number one, the woman is so sick and the husband's like, I can't even live with this anymore, whatever. So that
Yeah.
leads to problems. And then number two, maybe, is that the husband may even recognize that this is an issue, but he's not going to pay for this. Wait a second, I'm not going to remediate the home. I'm not going to leave the home. Enough with these expensive tests and doctor's visits and supplements. What is the answer? So how do we get men to understand that? I mean, again, sometimes you can't. Sometimes you knock
Yeah.
us over the head a million times and we're just too stupid, to wake up, and too stubborn, for that. But all you can keep doing is kind of keep hitting us over the head. But then also just seeking the third party confirmation. Anybody
Right.
ever in that scenario, I would love to help out. But, you Laurie, I mean, it's definitely a problem.
It's definitely a problem now. And, my husband came around because I did some testing and stuff. So I ordered, a bazillion tests of our house and like, see here, right? And then it's like, oh, there is an issue. But, I don't think most people, not just men included, but most people know that mold can kill you. Like, even if, if you have this long-term exposure to mold, like all of a sudden, you can develop heart issues, you can develop, dementia, Alzheimer's issues, and it's not dementia, Alzheimer's, it's the mold issue that's going on. I know even in the last few weeks, I'm like, my brain has just been kind of stuck because I've had this like flare of everything. And I'm like, okay, trying to think through what do I need to do next to, reverse this and to get back onto the other side where I was before. It's a challenge.
Multiple sclerosis.
Mm.
Your home state of Iowa, Terry Wall's territory,
Yep.
very famous, medical doctor. It's all mold, people. It's all mold.
I
Now
was
you can
so full
feel
of mold.
better.
Yeah.
Well, mold's everywhere. Mold. It doesn't matter if it's dry, it's wet. Now, if it's wet, it's more likely to be an issue. But we live in Colorado, Arizona, famous dry locations. It doesn't matter. If you've got running water, you can have mold. Air conditioning creates mold. Crawl spaces. I mean, it's just everywhere. It's in the Bible. It's in the book of Leviticus. Moses talks about it from 3,500 years ago about what to do if your home has mold. Check out chapter 14 of Leviticus. It's right there. So, it's, I guess the cool thing about it is that it makes us understand why there's so much sickness. When we
Right.
look at it through all these people with all these strange oddball symptoms who are not getting help from the medical doctors, it explains it all, which is a wonderful thing. Multiple sclerosis it's a mold story. That's all there is to it.
Yeah, no, I agree with you on that for sure. And it all goes back down to the foundation stuff. You have to change your diet. Your diet has to be clean, right? You have to get sleep. You have to get sunshine. You have to get movement. You have to do all those foundational things. And then you have to come in and get everything at the cellular level. So once you've done all those basic things, like what still needs to be done? Because people are like, I did change my diet. I'm getting my vitamin D. I'm exercising and I still feel like crap.
Well, all those things will help. But if you're living in the poison, if you're living in mold, back to that, if you're living in mold and or bacteria, if you, I mean, there's other things in the house that can be dangerous, right? Check, carbon monoxide levels. You can check radon levels, certainly EMF, electromagnetic fields, as you and I said about tech in the bedroom and things like that. That can all be playing a factor. But all these things that we do talk about, whether it's lead in paint or asbestos in the walls or EMF, none of these things are deliberately intent on injuring us. Mold and bacteria are. So bear that in mind. But the better that we eat, the better that we live otherwise, the better that we think, and the better that we test, and the better that with supplements and biohacking strategies, they'll be helpful, but you still got to go after the root cause. And if you're living in the poison, it's going to be tough to fully recover.
Yeah, for sure, for sure. And do you know Dr. Natasha Campbell McBride?
Yes.
Yeah, she always talks. She's like, in America, all you people want to do is just kill stuff. Just kill, kill, kill. She's like, you have to change the terrain. So you have to change the terrain in your body in order for your body to, overcome a lot of these illnesses and things. And, what we're talking about, toxicity and environmental stressors and electromagnetic frequencies. And, maybe 40 years ago, if we would have gotten exposed to mold, we wouldn't get the symptoms that we have today. But because our world is so much more toxic, it's so much more detrimental. Our food is so much more toxic. Our food has so much mold in it. I mean, good grief, I know you promote a really great coffee, which is, mold free and all that kind of stuff, but there's so many just basics things that you're consuming every single day at your local coffee shop that's, inundating your body with mold.
Well, you brought up a lot of good things there. And I think mold is stronger than it's ever been because mold is being threatened, right? So
Right.
EMF, air pollution, glyphosate, all these things impact the mold. And I believe the mold ultimately gets stronger. It mutates, it morphs, it gets stronger, and therefore releases more mold mycotoxins. But they're talking about it 3,500 years ago in the Hebrew Bible. So it was a problem then, it's a problem now.
Right.
And to Dr. McBride's commentary and stuff like that, as far as us like carpet bombing everything, I believe that that's certainly all true. But she's been she developed the GAPS diet. A lot of these diets, they can be helpful, but they're also very difficult. And if someone's got mold brain, if they've got brain fog, how do you go through all the minutia of that? You just got
Yep.
to go after the source. You got to go, right to the beginning of where it's coming from. But when I'm thinking about food, focusing on the stuff to eat, just focus on packing in as much seafood as you can. Focus on the organs. Go gluten-free, at the least. Go organic. But a lot of these different diets that just get down, and that's why I don't like food sensitivity testing
I know,
personally,
right?
right? Because it's like, oh, by the way, Lori, you can't eat cucumbers and almonds. And you're like, what? What's the matter with cucumber and almonds? Oh, well, it's like, no, the problem is that you've got leaky gut because your gut microbiome is being damaged from all the poison, including mold. I've got a slide that is 4 studies that show how mold mycotoxins damage the gut microbiome. And when you do that, all bets are off and you'll be sensitive to every food.
Oh, totally, completely. I remember I was having a lot of issues with my gut. I never cheat. Everything that I do is as clean as it can possibly be. Like you come to our home, you're like, she lives it to lead it. And my gut was just messed up. And my friend's like, you should do a food sensitivity test. And we live in Iowa. I said every fall when my husband is doing corn, I get really sick. And he comes home with the corn dust on this, so I think it's mold. Anyway, so I did a food sensitivity test to satisfy my friend and stuff like that. And sure enough, I mold or corn was off the charts. And I don't really think it's corn, but I think it's the mold and stuff in the corn that's causing the leaky gut issues. And my point to that is that's an environmental thing that I can't control, right? And so I have to do everything that I can to mitigate those issues because this is where I live.
Well, let me say this. If I am out somewhere where there is mold likely, like if I know, again, I have to go inside of this particular office or into a building. Before I walk into the house, and my wife does the same thing with our two boys, age 17 and 12. Like if they're around friends that have a lot of mold on them because they live in mold, my wife makes everybody strip in the garage and leave their clothes in the garage. And then we come inside naked and then we go shower real quick. And then at some point, the clothing outside it's vacuumed, and then it's brought inside to be washed.
It's amazing. I like that idea. No, it's a great idea. Yeah.
It's, is it a hassle? And, initially, was I like, oh, come on, are you serious? I got to do this. I got to strip down naked in the Colorado cold and come in the house. And then I started thinking about it because I see how my wife reacts around the mold. And she's sick. And
Yeah.
she's like, starts coughing and brain fog and feels dizzy. And I'm like, wow, am I such an ass that I can't take off my clothes? If I can't avoid those situations, again, mold is everywhere, but these are the steps that we have to take. And it's unfortunate, but it does provide a tremendous amount of answers.
Oh, absolutely. And I think once you've been sensitive to it, like your wife, myself, I can smell mold a mile away. You
Totally.
walk by somebody, you're like, oh my gosh, their house is moldy, and you just walked by them, you know?
Let me say one more thing too, is that, back to this kind of canary in the coal mine, I think that it is a blessing for women because in this sense, they can tell when there's danger. And
Yeah.
this is just this Paleolithic thing that women have, because if a woman senses danger, then she does not get pregnant. Then she does not, go into labor at that point. It's a protective mechanism. So the women have this ability to sense danger, and that could be air pollution, it could be mold in the house, it could be EMF that affects people. But again, it's the women that typically get the symptoms, but that's what it's for. It's to give the women the early warning signs that now is not a good time to make a baby.
Right. And to protect the ones we already have, right? I mean, you get your whole mama bear thing going on, and yeah, you want to make sure everybody's okay.
Totally, totally,
Totally.
totally.
You don't want to mess with the woman. You should always believe the woman when she's not feeling well. She knows what she's talking about most of the time.
Through all my training again, it's like, what do we learn? A woman comes in complaining of X, Y, Z. I got brain fog. I don't feel well. I'm depressed. Okay, here's your Prozac. Here's your Prozac or one of the other million pharmaceuticals that they came up for that. But women are not deficient in Prozac.
No.
Women have a cause for their symptoms, and we better figure out the cause of their symptoms, the causes of their symptoms, and the causes of the violations of the eat well, live well, and think well. And the more that we improve on those things, the more we can get those women healthy again. And again, these men that, the men who have a heart attack at 45, they have a stroke at 55, cancer at 57, all the things with the men, it's happening for a reason. And it's all in the medical literature, but the medical docs, they're not interested in how mold impacts the body. They're not interested.
Right, right. Which is too bad. Too bad for sure. Yeah. So let's talk about think well. That's like your third part of, who you are. How does your mindset and how you're thinking, affect your brain health, affect your heart health, everything like that?
Yeah, it's just as important as anything else. We all go after the food story, but what about the living well? And then what about the thinking well? Every time I see someone who's had a heart attack or a stroke or a blood clot or cardiomyopathy, I always ask them what happened just before this. And there
Right.
was always some stressful event. Typically, it's chronic stress and then an acute stressor that tips them over the edge. So we want to get people to focus on thinking well, finding they're happy, focus on community, good community, spirituality, purpose, gratitude, passion, focus on your, self, acceptance. And those things are all very important as well. The security and the safety that you have. If you're unhappy on your job, find a new job. Find some way to either get happy on the job or find a new job. Unhappy with your spouse, fix the situation, or get out of the situation. That's just the way that it is. Um, um, and if you're like, okay, well, we said, till death do us part and all these other kind of things that, I understand all that, but just be prepared to live with perpetual sickness, because if
Right.
you have anxiety, stress, anger, depression, if you have feelings of social isolation, you're going to be sick and you're going to die much quicker than someone who is happy. So find your happy.
Right? Totally, totally. I wanted to ask you like another side note here for like one parent to another. So having kids, raising them, like how that live it to lead it lifestyle, you're the paleo cardiologist, I'm the calm mom, how are we raising our kids? I know we're both homeschooling, but there's a lot of things that come against us. And I have so many parents who are like, oh, I can't make my kids eat that way. If we go to a party, I'm going to let them do this or I'm going to let them do that, or, a little bit of this here and a little bit of this there is okay. And I know some people think that I'm extreme with my kids, but both of them have grown up to be, very conscious of their health decisions, and making their own way in the world. But what do you say to parents who are like trying to do this, but it feels overwhelming, all those kind of things?
Well, like you said, live it to lead it, I think is certainly a good kind of mantra. And it really just goes back to, leading by example. Just be the example in your family. I'm eating this certain way, I'm living this certain way, and hopefully that's inspiring you to do the same. Now, when you have kids, you should have total control. Like
Yep.
if my, 6-year-old daughter says, I want to eat Fruit Loops, and like, well, that's not ever happening.
Not an
So
option.
just yeah, I mean, so just like if they said, I want to start smoking cigarettes, you'd be like, no. So the education early on is important, but just that control factor of the children who live with you. Hey, this is my house. These are the rules, and this is the way it's going down. And then after that, listen, if you're 60 years old and you've got 35-year-old, for example, son, all you can do is continue to provide information, lead by example, I think is powerful. And when is enough enough? Like, when is it enough to yell at someone, hey, your house is on fire? Like, you would never stop yelling at the person, right? Get out of that. It's burning. It's on fire. Like, get out of the house. When someone is so, you're sitting at the Thanksgiving dinner, you're at a birthday dinner, and here goes Laurie again. She's going off on this riff about organic and gluten-free and toxins, whatever. It's like, hey, that's the way Laurie is. Like, one thing, what Laurie, about my wife, was absolutely brilliant, and just she was born with this knowledge. I'd like to say God, gave her this knowledge right from the beginning. I had to have it hammered into my, system, whatever. My wife is always on the stump. She's always preaching the health gospel.
Yep.
And that's it. And if you don't like it, then you can leave her presence, but she's not going to stop. That I promise you.
Right.
That I promise you. She will never stop. And I try and be the same way.
Yep, yep, absolutely. And I think I've always teach my, my mamas that come in, I'm like, just don't make it a big deal. Don't make it like, now we're going to eat gluten free and this is what we're going to do. And, all those kind of things. Like you just, okay, we just start switching things in and out. And if your husband doesn't like it, my husband didn't like it at first either. I remember the first time I went grocery shopping after we got married, because he had been single for over 40 years. And so, he was bologna sandwiches, Oreos, Mountain Dew, all those kind of things. And he married me. And so first time I went, I'm looking at my grocery list. I literally cried in the grocery store because I'm like, I can't buy this stuff. I can't buy this stuff. And so it took me a little while. And finally I said, you're going to have to go buy your own things because I can't contribute to this, and then, he eventually, it took him like 6 years to give up Oreos, those kind of things, but he finally did. But, my kids, I just didn't make it a big deal. I always tried to make sure that they had food that looked just like their cousins, or, something similar. And I remember my daughter saying to me when she was like 6, she's like, when I'm 16, I'm gonna eat wheat, just so you know. And I said to her, that's fine. When you're 16, you could eat wheat. And now, she's 17 and there is no way and she would ever eat wheat because she gets it. She's been to all the conferences with me. She lives my life with me, So it's just, living it to lead it, but, just letting them figure it out, as well, but keeping, all those things in your home that you hold sacred.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I mean, again, I agree with all that, but sometimes, right, you just got to pull the hard line and be like, listen, this is the way that it's going down. And, if you love me, and you want to stay with me, then, then you will follow by these rules. And if
Right.
you don't, then, I mean, again, there's so much to this, but ultimately, if, ladies and gentlemen, you want to be healthy, this is the way you have to live and the way people around you want to live, right? Because both you and
Yep.
I know that laundry detergent, fabric softener, dryer sheets, they're all poison. They're all absolute. And of course, there's healthy versions you can use in all those arenas, and those are fine. But I'm talking about Tide, Downy,
Yep.
Gain, Bounce. I'm talking about Suavitel. I'm talking about that stuff. That's poison. So if your husband were to say, okay, well, I'm going to do my laundry with Bounce, and you can do your laundry, but it's in the same laundry machine, like that's not going to
Doesn't
fly.
work. Yeah.
Like that's not going to work. And you're going to continue to be sick. So either you can stay in the sickness or you could do something about it. And I'm again, there's so many different things that go along with
Yep.
that.
Yep.
And I'm not trying to rile up this whole army of husbands to come out here to Colorado. Actually, I don't live in Colorado. We live in California. I'm in the governor's mansion. My name is Gavin Newsom.
There you go.
Come get me. I mean, it's crazy. We live in a crazy world, prehistorically, paleolithically, like everybody was healthy. I mean, Laurie, can you imagine back to the 25, 30-year-old male in Paleolithic times and the female in Paleolithic times? Like those people were absolute Adonises. They were perfect,
Right.
perfect. And then agriculture, comes in, and we've just been going south ever since. And if you want to regain that, you have to embrace the Paleolithic living.
No, I totally agree with that, man. I've loved this conversation. Anything else you want to add?
Don't inject yourself full of chemicals.
Amen. There you go. Don't inject yourself. There we go. How about that? Perfect. And if you do, come see us because we can help you.
Hopefully.
Hopefully we
Hopefully.
can help you. Sometimes things are really bad. All right. Well,
Yep.
I think that's a wrap, Dr. Jack. I appreciate
Thank
you
you.
so much. This has been a phenomenal conversation. Thank you everyone for listening. Make sure that you like, subscribe, and share. Follow the Take Back My Brain podcast on all the platforms and YouTube, and I will see you in the next episode. Thank you.